In this video, you are going to understand about how to use AOP using annotations. Earlier, you have seen AOP, how to write around advice without using annotations. Now let us see the one using annotations. It's very easy to write an aspect. Let me just show you. See, to write an aspect, what you need to do is you just have to write a simple POJO, normal Java class. The simple POJO. I'll annotate this class with aspect. Then I just want this method I want this log before method to be executed before, to be used as an before advice. So I'll annotate with before. Okay. I want this to be executed wherever or before a method called as, say, get all customers. So here I'll write execution of star space get all customers of dot dot get all customers, that's all. So that's it. Any method annotated with before annotation like this is nothing but a before advice. Forget about the rest of the methods. As of now, this is only the before advice. So I have a class annotated with aspect and I have a method annotated with before. So this is nothing but before advice. You have a point cut. Combination of advice and point cut is nothing but an advisor, is it? Another name for advisor is nothing but an aspect. So this whole class I can call it as an aspect because you have the code, advice code, this advice code is a point cut expression. So combination of point cut expression as well as advice is nothing but an advisor. So this whole class contains the information. So this class is an aspect. Okay. Now let me just open the XML again. This is again the XML. I have enabled component scanning. That's all right. So this logging aspect, I will annotate it as a component. So this will be treated as a bin. Now I want these annotations to be recognized and I want proxies to be automatically created. So earlier you understood, if you want proxies to be automatically created, we registered something called as auto proxy creator in my earlier video, which is a bean post processor. So that bean post processor only is responsible for creating proxies. So similarly, we want bean post processor to be configured, which will recognize annotations and then create proxies. So what I can do is I can go to namespaces. I'll go to AOP namespace. I selected AOP namespace. I'll come back. Observe that AOP namespace is added. Then what? AOP colon AspectJ auto proxy. This is a namespace tag which will register some bean post processors which can recognize these annotations and can create proxies. That's it. So this is a one to enable, and here I have specified, and this will be executed before what method? Get all customers. Okay, so I have a test case. Let us check. I have a test case where I have injected customer DAO. Oh, is this customer DAO configured as a bin? Yes, repository annotation is used and customer DAO is configured. Now in my test case I am injecting it. So will I get a proxy? If at least one method of this class is matching the point cut expression, it will be replaced with a proxy, right? So here I'll be getting a proxy, and here I'm calling I'll call get all customers first. Okay, so let me check if proxy is applied or not, or first of all I'll give a breakpoint and check whether I'm getting a proxy or not. So see here, is this customer DAO pointing to proxy? Yes. So I'm calling a method on the proxy. Let me just run it. Observe. Is this printing before? Yes, the before advice is getting executed. So AOP is working, the aspect is working. So if I call get customer by ID, anyway I will comment out. I'll call once get all customers and I'll call get customers by ID. See, for get customer by ID, I'm not seeing before printed, but before get all customers, it's getting printed. So it is working. Now, what I want to do is, in this, I want to access the method name. In this log method, I want to access the method name, method arguments. So now you understand that give the join point for this advice get all customers. So the method is nothing but we call it as a join point. If you want to access join point details like join point name and join point arguments, what you can do is you can make your method to optionally take join point, and then how we can specify join point dot get signature dot get name will give me the method name, and also plus I just want to print the arguments also passed with args. I want to convert join point dot get args will give me an array, but how to convert array to string? So there is something called as arrays dot to string. If you pass an array, it will print a string representation. Okay, so I'm accessing the join point details. My method can optional take join point as argument. Now let me check. I will run the same test. For get all customers, it's printing before get all customers with args empty, right? It's working. Okay, now you understood about how to write a before advice. And if you are not using XML configuration, in XML configuration, how to enable AspectJ annotation support, AOP colon AspectJ auto proxy. This will internally register some bean post process which will recognize the AspectJ annotations. If you are using Java configuration, what is the equivalent? Enable AspectJ auto proxy is equivalent of AOP colon AspectJ auto proxy. Okay. So now you understood about how to write a before advice without join point, and this is the one with join point. Okay, so now it is time to understand about how to write or how to define your point cut expressions. So Spring AOP uses AspectJ's point cut expression language. Hey, what is this AspectJ? So let me elaborate on it. Actually, AspectJ is a original AOP technology. This concept of aspect-oriented programming is not invented by Spring. There is a framework called as AspectJ where they have defined all these concepts and they have implemented all these concepts of advices, point cuts, etc. Spring AOP is just a subset of the concepts. It implements some subset of concepts of AspectJ. AspectJ is a much more powerful framework which is providing much more functionalities than Spring AOP. Okay, in Spring AOP, how are we applying aspects to the targets? By creating a dynamic proxy, and the proxy will call the advice logic, is it? But in AspectJ, what we do is, once we write aspects, we use a special compiler given by AspectJ called as AspectJ compiler. And then for AspectJ compiler, we'll give the advices as input. What they do is they do bytecode modification of the dot class file of the original target. So they will modify the bytecode of the original target and then write the aspect logic into the bytecode. So we say that AspectJ uses compile time weaving. The aspect logic is weaved into the bytecode of the original target during compile time only. So AspectJ uses compile time weaving, but Spring AOP implements same concept through a dynamic proxy. The aspect logic is weaved into the original logic through a proxy. So Spring AOP uses dynamic weaving and AspectJ uses bytecode weaving. That is one difference between AspectJ and Spring AOP. We'll see some more differences going on further. Since AspectJ is a very good framework and it has implemented most of the features, in AspectJ what they have done is they have invented something called as AspectJ expression language. And in Spring they thought, hey, why should I invent our own expression language? Why can't we reuse the AspectJ's expression language? So with that idea, in Spring AOP, they didn't invent their own expression language. They are using AspectJ's expression language. So let us see how this AspectJ expression language will look like. Expressions in AspectJ expression language will look like this: execution of, okay, what is the syntax? Execution of some method pattern. What is the method pattern? First, modifiers, execution of. In square bracket, whatever I keep, it is optional. Modifiers is optional. Modifiers. And then return type is mandatory. And then in square bracket again, class type. This is optional. And method name of arguments is optional. And then throws exception type is also optional. So this is the syntax of expression in AspectJ. Okay, so let us see some syntaxes. We can combine expressions, two or more expressions, using either and operator like this, ampersand, or operator or not operator. Okay, so let us see execution of this one. So let me just take this into here, execution. So in this, is there a modifier present? No, modifier is not present. Return type is mandatory. It started with return type. Modifier is not present. What is an example of a modifier? A modifier can be an annotation which is used on top of a method. Okay, or it can be a public, protected, etc. as well. So right now there is no modifier here. Return type is void. And is there a class type here? No, class type is not present. Method name is present. Method name starting with send. And args, yeah, it is actually not mandatory, but I gave an arg. So this pointed expression matches what all methods? Any method starting with send. In which class? Since I didn't specify any class, it in any class. Okay, So any method starting with send present in any class whose return type is void, and the method must take one argument of type string. That is the meaning of this expression. Okay, next. Let me take this expression and paste it there. So what, again, the method name, before method name, what is it? Mandatory return type. So return type can be anything. Method name has to be exactly send. Earlier it was send star. That means the method name starting with send. Here the method name is exactly send. And what about arguments? One star is there. One star means one argument, but argument can be of type any type. So this is matching any method whose name is exactly send present in any class name is not given, so any class. Return type can be anything. Method argument, there should be only one method argument and its type can be anything. Okay, so let me just take this again and paste it here. Yep, so now tell me, this is a method name mandatory. So before method name is return type, so any return type method name has to be exactly send. What about arguments? First argument should be int and afterwards dot dot means n number of arguments. Okay, so that's about some basic things. Now let me show you the next one. I'll just copy paste it there. Yeah, so method name is anything. Class type is optional, but I gave a class type. Return type is void. So this expression matches any method belonging to this class in this package whose return type is void, and the method can take any argument. So all methods of bank service IMPL which are returning void are matched, right? Okay, now next one. What about this one? Assume that this bank service is an interface. So this is matching what? All methods of bank service interface whose return type is void, and method should take how many arguments? One argument. One star means one argument. Where args means dot dot, right? Okay. So if this is an interface, now this pointer will match any methods on the implementation as well. If this is an interface, okay. Next, what about this? User common sense and tell me. So here, let me just write it here. So here the method name is send, return type is what? Before return type, what is coming? Modifier. So what will this expression match? It will match any method starting with send with return type 0 but annotated with roles allowed. So any send method, any method starting with send and annotated with roles allowed, this expression will be matching, right? Okay, now what about this one? Let me just take this part. Method name can be anything, class name can be anything, but the package between com package and spring package, there should be some other subdirectory. Star is nothing but package. Return type can be anything. So that's the meaning of this expression. Any method of any class belonging to this package. In the package name should start with com. After com, there can be any other sub package, and after that, there should be spring. Okay. So what about this? Let me show you. There is dot dot. Dot dot means between com package and spring package there can be n number of sub packages. Method can be anything, class name can be anything. And what about this finally? So method name can be anything, class name can be anything, but the package should be ending with spring. Before spring there can be n number of packages. Is it? Yes. Okay. So these are the various point get expressions. We'll be seeing some more point get expressions as well going on further. So these are the basic point get expressions which you need to understand. Okay. Now, once you understood various point get expressions, let us see how to implement advices. If you see here, what is the flow for a before advice? You will call a method on the proxy will execute the before advice first, then the control will come back, then the proxy is invoking the target. Use your common sense and tell me if the before advice is throwing an exception. Whenever you call a method on proxy, it's calling the before advice. If before method is throwing an exception, will the target be invoked? No. If before advice is throwing an exception, the exception will propagate to the caller. The target will not be invoked. Remember this. Okay. So this is after returning advice. This is a flow. Whenever you call a method on the proxy, first the proxy will invoke the target. And if the target method returns successfully without any exception, then only after returning advice will be executed. So after returning advice will be executed after the target. If the target returns successfully, if there is exception, after returning advice will not be executed. Okay. Now I'll ask a logical question. Do you think it makes sense? Does it make sense to have to expect a return value? The method is returning and then this is getting called, right? Can I expect the return value to be accessible inside after returning advice? Yes, because by the time the after returning advice is executed, we are sure that the target method is successfully executed, so I can access. So what I can do is, if I want to implement after returning advice, I can write a method, annotate it with after returning, and this is a point cut expression. Then comma returning equals to customer. See, I gave returning is equals to customer. Whatever name I gave here for returning equals to, my method should take an argument of same type with same name, not type, same name. The name should be matching. So here I gave customer. Here also my method argument should be taking customer. The return value will be injected into a variable with name customer. So now, can you tell me this method will be executed for what? What is the return type? Star. But here I am assuming the return type is customer. So this method will be executed only when this pointed expression is matching and also the return type is customer. So it's a combination. So the return value will be injected here. Then I can use it. Right? So let me just implement this after returning advice here in logging aspect. These are logging after returning, and let me use after returning, and value is equals to. So let me just give this expression only. I can give any expression, comma, returning equals to what? I have to give the same name customer. So return value will be injected here. So will it match? Is the get all customers returning customer? No, right? Get all customers, is it returning customer? No, it is returning list of customers. So this will never get matched. So what I will do is I'll just make sure that I'll say get star. So instead of get all customers, I'll say get star, and the pattern is get star cust star again. I can give wildcards like this, get star cust star. So method can be following is wildcard. Okay, now let me run the test case. So I'm calling get all customers and also get customer by ID. Let us see. Hmm. So this before advice is executed, but after returning advice is not executed. Let me again check. Return type is customer. Oh, this is taking customer ID, is it? So here I have to pass dot dot 0 or more. That I missed. So now let me execute. For get customer by ID, after the get customer by ID is called, I am saying after returning get customer by ID with args of 1, return value is customer object. Is it? So that's printed. Return value is customer object dot toString. So they have implemented after returning advice. And join point is optional. If you want to access join point details, you can make your method to take join point as argument, otherwise not required. Okay. So next. After throwing advice. So this is a flow for after throwing advice. You call a method on the proxy. First, the proxy will directly invoke the target. If the target is throwing an exception, then only after throwing advice will be executed. So can I expect an exception object to be available to this advice? Yes, this is definitely executed when exception. So I can expect exception object. So see how I'm implementing it. The annotation is after throwing. This is a point get expression. Throwing equals to e. So the exception will be injected into any variable which is whose name is e. Here it is. Now my method is taking data access exception. Can you guess this method, this point get method, sorry, this advice is executed for what all exceptions? This will be executed whenever exception data access exception is thrown on a method which is matching this point get expression. So again, it's a combination. Suppose if you want this method to be executed for all exceptions, what you can do, you can make this as exception java.lang.exception. So it will match all the exceptions. Okay. So here the annotation is after throwing, and value is equals to I'll just give the same expression. Okay, comma, throwing equals to what I have to give. Here I gave e, here also I have to give same name is equals to e. So this will be executed only when data access exception is thrown. And what I'm doing, I'm rethrowing the exception. See what will happen is, so exception is thrown, this method will be executed. But will the exception propagate to the caller? Will the exception propagate to the caller? Yes. So you called a method on the proxy, the original method has thrown an exception, and before the exception is propagated, where it is this throwing after throwing advice is called. So after this is logic is executed, then the exception will be propagated to the caller. So in after throwing advice, we don't have any way to suppress the exception. The exception has to propagate anyway, in any case. If you want to suppress the exception, you should not use after throwing advice. In after throwing advice, you cannot suppress the exception. What only you can do is, you can rethrow another exception. So here I am actually rethrowing my own exception. So this exception will be propagated to the caller now. So that is the option available in case of after throwing advice. Okay. Let me just check this method. will throw an exception if customer ID is not existing. It will throw an exception. So what I'll do is I'll say get customer by ID 100. There is no customer by ID 100, so I should see that throws exception, throws advice is executed. Let us see. So get customer by ID is called, and here you can see after throwing, because an exception is being thrown, and customer ID exception is what exception here? Exception is empty result data access exception, right? So is this after returning advice executed in this case? No. So after returning will be executed only when there is no exception. So you had to observe that after throwing only got executed, not after returning. Okay, hope it is clear. And you can just see here in JUnit what is the exception which I got the color. I didn't get the original exception. The original exception which was thrown was empty result data exception. This is the original exception which is thrown. But to the caller in my test case, I am not getting that exception. I am getting some runtime exception, rethrowing own exception. So is it the same thing which I was throwing? Yes. So whatever exception I am rethrowing, that will be propagated. If I don't throw it, the original exception only will be propagated. Let me check. See what is the exception which got propagated? Empty result data access exception. But there is no way to stop the exception from propagating if you are using after throwing. Okay, next. After advice. This after advice will be executed after the method is executed, whether the method returns successfully or not. In both cases, this after advice will be executed. Now tell me, think logically, can I expect a return value to be accessible here? No, this might be executed because of exception. Can I expect exception of it here? No, it might be executed because of successful return. We don't know, right? So in after advice, we cannot access return value or exception object. So how to implement it? By using after annotation like this. So there's a method which I wrote already, so I'll just annotate it with after and value is equals to whatever. Okay, so that's it. Now let me run the test case and observe. See, exception is thrown, so after throwing is executed, but after also got executed. After got executed for get all customers as well, right? So that's about after advice. Now finally, around advice. See the flow of around advice, it is important. Whenever you call a method on the proxy will invoke the around advice. Now in around advice, you can execute some logic and then you can call proceed method, then target is executed. After target is executed, again the control is coming back, you can execute some logic. So here before calling proceed, you can execute some pre-processing logic, and after calling proceed, we can execute some post-processing logic. So in around advice, you can execute some pre and post-processing logic. So what is the signature? Your method which is annotated with around must take proceeding join point. Earlier for all other advices, the join point was optional. Now here you must take proceeding join point. Actually proceeding join point is a subtype of join point. Okay. So I use around annotation and this is a point get expression. And my method is taking proceeding join point. See here, this is a logic of caching. We are checking the value is there in the cache or not. If not, we are calling proceeding join point dot proceed. So proceeding join point dot proceed will result in executing the original method. Then we are getting the return value, putting it back in the cache. So that's how you can configure around advice. Okay, so I have one more class, caching aspect. This was logging aspect. Now this is caching aspect. I could have written that this method also in the same class, but I'm writing it differently. So I'm treating it with aspect, and I want this to be recognized as a bean. So component, and this method has to be annotated with round value is equals to um, I'll give same expression. Okay, I configure this method such that it should be executed for all methods of customer .impl. Okay, so what I'll give execution of star, return type is star, and class name is customer .impl. So customer .impl com.waitlearnonline.dao package com.waitlearnonline.dao dot, and then dot star the all methods of this class and taking any arguments. So this is the around advice. This is a point cut which I gave. Okay, so it will match all. Okay, so let me test. Here I'll give an existing customer ID. Let me check. For first get all customers before advice got executed, and then after got executed, and it is printing cache miss around advice got executed, right? And for this method also, after returning, everything got executed. And what about and for this get a customer by ID, I don't see anything like cache miss or cache hit. I think I didn't write that. Only in case of miss I have written, otherwise I didn't write, I guess. Oh, I should see cache hit. I should see this customer.impl all methods which are running anything, that's fine. Let me check again. After returning, I think here it is printing cache miss. Oh, here also it printed cache miss. Yes, both times cache miss. I saw the logs. Okay, so I was able to show you a demo on around advice. This is how you can write your own around advice. Okay, so let's move further. Now you have seen AOP using annotations. Suppose if I'm not using annotations, I don't want to use annotations, what I should do? Let us see. I have a separate project AOP using XML. So see the logic. I have caching aspects. Here only I have do before, do after, and do caching and all. Now what I want is, I'm not using any annotations here. I want this class to be an aspect. So see what I'm doing. I will import AOP namespace, and I want to define this class as an aspect. So I will write AOP namespace config, AOP config, then inside this I will write AOP colon aspect. So I want to call this class as an aspect. This is not using any annotations, it's a POJO. So I want to tell that this is an aspect. So what I'll do is I'll say ref is equals to caching aspect. So just by referencing from this tag, I'm telling that this is an aspect. Okay. Then AOP colon before method is equals to, I have do before, and point cut is equals to, I will write execution of star space get star cust star of dot dot. So wherever this point get expression is matching, this do before method of caching aspect should be executed. Is it not similar to, is the information given here, is it not similar to the information given inside before annotation? Yes. So that's it. We have configured a before method, and I have one more method inside caching aspect, do after. I want this to be executed after. So again I'll write AOP colon after, method is equals to do after, and I will again use same point cut expression. And finally I have one more method, do caching. So I want this as an around advice. So AOP colon around method is equals to do caching, and again point cut is equals to same. Oh, sorry. Point cut is equals to this one. So that's all. I have configured AOP using annotations. Let me test now. So I have a test case using caching.xml. I'm calling get customer by ID 4 times, or better, I'll call get all customers once and get customer by ID once. Now see here. So do after is executed, do before is executed. Right, all these are executed. So this is how you can use AOP without annotations as well. But there is some problem. I'm using same point get expression at multiple places. If tomorrow I want to change the point get expression, I need to change it 3 places. Redundant configuration is it. So what I want to do is I want to configure a point cut and give it a name. So I can give OP called point cut expression is equals to this expression, and then I will give the ID as a my point cut. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll refer to this point cut dash ref is equals to my point cut. Similarly here also I will use point cut ref is equals to my point cut. Finally here also point cut ref is equals to my point cut. So this is nothing but a named point cut. I defined a point cut and I assigned a name. So if you want to reuse a point cut definitions, then you can define a named point cut and then refer to the named point cut like this. So let us see if I run this test case, will I get same results or not? Yep, still I can see that these are getting executed. Is it? Yes. So that's about named point cuts. How to define named point cut? Using AOP colon point cut, you define named point cut, and then you are referencing to the named point cut. Okay, next. How to define a named point cut using annotations? Let me show you. I'll go to the previous project. Here, how to do all the other methods, all these methods are using same point cut. So I'll write a method, dummy method. I'll say public void my point cut empty method, and I will use annotation called as point cut and give the value. Now this is nothing but a named point cut. Name of the point cut is nothing but the method name. Now wherever I was using that earlier, I can just refer to my point cut. So I am reusing the point cut definitions, right? So this is how you can define a named point cut using annotations, and you can use this, right? Okay. Now a few more things are there. Let's assume that you have an interface like this where you have start method and stop method. In the advice, how can I access the target object and also the arguments? It's very simple. You can use join point. You can make your method to take join point as argument. This method is matching. See, this point cut expression is matching server start method on server, which is taking map. Okay, and your method is taking join point. Join point dot get target will give you the target object. Join point dot get args will give you the arguments, so you can access it. But are you not using AOP API? Is this class a POJO? No, the device is not a POJO. It is using from Spring specific API. So what you can do is you can use a context selection point cut. How? See, in the point cut, this was the first one was same expression which I used, ampersand. It means end. The target is a predefined keyword, and also args is a predefined keyword. Now what will happen? Your method now is taking server directly and map directly. So a target object will be automatically injected into a variable with the name server. Arguments will be injected into a method argument with name input. So this point cut expression is selecting the context specific information, the join point specific information as well. Such type of point cut expressions are called as context selection point cut expressions. And also, if you want annotations to be injected, annotation object to be injected, you can use like this, right? So first point cut expression ampersand and at annotation of txn. Now tell me, when this method is executed, the txn is of what type? Transactional. So this point cut expression matches any method. The first expression is matching any method and annotation is txn. So effectively this method will be executed on any method which is annotated with transactional, and the object of transactional annotation is injected here. So from transactional you can get the value of timeout, read only, etc. That means suppose I have a method like this. I have a method m in class X annotated with transactional, and I specified timeout is equals to 100 comma read only is equals to true, something like this. So I want to access these values inside the annotation, inside my address, inside my advice. See, the transactional object is injected. So txn.timeout will give you the timeout 100, txn.read only will give you the value true or false. So if you want to access the annotation related details also, you can access it in this way. Okay. Okay. So that's all about annotations. So that's all about AOP using annotations and XML. Now what you can do is you can just go through this lab documentation. I hope earlier you have completed this documentation. Now you have to go through these two documentations and complete this exercises. So hope you have understood the AOP clearly. So we'll meet you in next video for the next topic, transactions.